Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McElmore.
Well, hello, and welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have Diane Lang, positive living expert, coach, and speaker. We have a whole lot more to tell you about Miss Lang, but instead of trying to do the long title, we're going to let Miss Lang introduce herself, and then we're going to jump right into this awesome interview. How are you doing, Diane?
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
You are welcome. It's my pleasure. I've been really excited about talking to you. Because like I said, there are so many things that we're going to talk on this evening because your background is amazing. And as we talked for a few minutes earlier, it's like, hey, we call ourselves local stars, but I don't think that you're just a local star. So we're gonna move a little. We're gonna move you into the next atmosphere because I think you're already there. We're just gonna push you over the edge just a little bit more. So before we actually dive into the interview, could you please just tell my listeners a little bit about who you are?
Sure. So I am a positive psychologist, and what that is, because a lot of people aren't as familiar with positive psychology, it is the newest branch of psychology. It is actually not that new, but new compared to going back to Maslow and humanistic and Freud. And it was coined in 1998. And what we actually do is we study, we teach, and we use positive psychology in our practice, where we study and research happiness, optimism, our strengths, and just how to live a great life. So we're working on the other side of the field. I like to say the better side because it's the happier side. Mm-hmm. So I use positive psychology both when I teach at the college level, in my workshops, and I use it with my clients. And I think it's a really great tool to have, being a positive psychologist or using it in your practice, because we really focus on living your best life. So it's also the science that is used behind life coaching. So if you work with a coach of any type, they probably have a background in positive psychology as well. So I've been doing this for about 20 years. I've been working as a therapist. Part of my practice is coaching, and the other part is I work with traumatic brain injury and substance abuse on my counseling side. And I'm also an adjunct at Montclair State University in New Jersey, where I teach in the psychology department. Mm-hmm. And I've been speaking, doing workshops for the last 4 or 5 years in the New York City tri-state area on various emotional wellness topics, such as happiness and positive psychology, as well as, letting go of anger and finding forgiveness, retrain your brain for success, mindfulness. So all different emotional wellness topics through the New York City tri-state area for various corporations, colleges, libraries, schools. So I've been getting out there and being really busy.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. Wow, you just gave me a whole bunch of information. So what we're going to do is we're, of course, going to chop a little bit of that up. But before we dive into that, are you originally from New York area?
I am. I'm from Long Island. I've been there till I was in my 30s, and then I moved to New Jersey in my mid-30s, and I'm still here currently. So I just moved to the other side of New York City.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I could hear that. I could hear that language. I could hear that, in your voice. I'm like, okay, is she originally from New York, or is she,
yes,
coming from somewhere else? I could always tell a New Yorker. So.
Yes, we always have that accent that just sneaks its way out no matter what.
Exactly.
Are you a New Yorker too?
No. I'm actually originally from Davenport, Iowa, but I currently live in the Washington, D.C. metro area. I've been here for about 14 years now, so.
That's why you have such a great accent. Like, you sound perfect because you don't have that, regional accent like I do. So,
well, it's funny because when I go home, people are like, "You have an accent like I do." I mean, I don't really pick up on how I sound, but I guess being gone so long, I probably do. Who knows? But
well, not compared to me, so don't worry about it.
You're right. I don't think anybody can outdo a New Yorker. I hate to say it.
It's true.
Okay, so tell me, like I said, you gave me a lot of great information up front. So I guess let's talk about your actual business first, and then I want to talk a little bit after that about your books and some of the things that you got going on, because you have, like you said, have been extremely busy. So tell me, how you decided to use your education that you have in psychology. And of course, I want to say first that I've never actually have heard of positive psychology. It's amazing. We need to have more of that, and we need to hear I mean, because the way things are today, all you hear is the negative. So it's really interesting to hear more about the positive psychology and how you utilize this within your business. So let's talk about that first.
Sure. You know what? A lot of people really have not heard about it. And when I do a workshop, and I always ask, I'm like, has anybody here heard of positive psychology? And I usually get one or two hands that go up. So I'm kind of used to it. But the truth is, it's a really great science, because what it does is we really started studying what makes people happy, optimistic, what works well for people. And, for so many years, we've been studying what makes us depressed. We've been studying mental illness, and that's so important. But yet we never thought about, what about the functioning person who doesn't have mental illness, but just deals with everyday work-life balance, deals with stress, kids, financial issues, relationship issues? What about the person, who has those types of issues, just daily living? How do we make their lives better? Because, a lot of us, even if we don't have mental illness or we don't feel depressed, we still sometimes feel like we're not living our best lives. Or we feel like our lives, as some of my clients will say, they feel blah. They've lost that enthusiasm for life, or they just feel not as motivated, or, they hit a point where they feel stuck and lost. And that's why coaching and positive psychology is so important, because it's really solution-based, and it gives a lot of tips and tools that are completely realistic. They're free, they don't change your schedule at all, and they're sustainable. And that's what makes it really useful, because, what I hear from my clients all the time is, I don't have any more time and I don't have any more money, but I want to be happier. So
exactly.
How do we get there? Right. So this science actually does it, and I use it with my clients, but to be fully honest, I use it with myself. And when I started using a lot of the tips and tools that I was teaching, and I saw such a difference in my life, I realized I really need to get this out there. So about 6-7 years ago, I got really sick, and I ended up with this very rare illness that has no cure. And what it basically did is I got third-degree burns on my throat, and I couldn't swallow, not even my own saliva, for a very long time. I couldn't eat a full meal for over a year. I'm stuck on a very strict alkaline diet. There's no cure. I have precancer in my throat, so I really have to be careful. And I went through a very big grieving and, stressful, depressing time when this happened, because it took them so long to figure out what was wrong with me. I couldn't eat. I couldn't swallow. It affected my career. And I started using all the tips and tools that I teach from positive psychology, and I couldn't believe what a difference it made in my life. And when that happened, it really sent me into like this really big motivation momentum of, I have to get this out there because it really works. And I watched it work, and I still use it to this day. And it's definitely made a huge impact in my life. And now I've watched it make such a huge impact in others. And I just want to share the information with as many people as I can so they can all live their best lives as well.
Right. I was listening to how you were talking about the fact that, we don't have to necessarily be crazy or constantly be 100% depressed just to know that there's certain things in our lives that we want to do better and want to have better. And the one thing I like when you said about the client, it says all they really want to do is just be happy. And that is the main thing I think that everybody strives for every day. And it's not always about having to have a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of time. I just want to wake up some days and I just don't want to have to worry about anything. I just want to be happy. So, you know what I'm saying?
No,
I mean,
right.
It's amazing. I was sitting here just, listening to what you're saying, but, to think of it as a thought of having to go through a psychology, using your mind in that way, in a format to where you constantly have to think positive thoughts or doing positive things. So I'm sure I'm not 100% right about this, but I guess give me just a little snippet into the listeners about what it is that you actually tell your clients and actually tell yourself, because since you use this tool and these resources for yourself to maintain that positiveness, how does that work?
Well, And something you said is so true. We don't want to have to concentrate and always thinking about our thoughts. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, no one can be happy all the time. So I don't want anybody to think that, even as a positive psychologist or a life coach or a therapist, we're not happy all the time. There's no such thing as Pollyanna. And you should never try to strive for that because it's an unrealistic expectation. We will have bad days. We will have good days. One thing to always remember is change is the only constant in the world. So you can't possibly always have good days. And the other thing that I don't want people to think is that we don't want you to feel your negative emotions, because that's not the truth either. You need to feel to heal. So if you're angry, you're hurt, you're sad, you're lonely, whatever, is going on in your life, you need to feel those emotions, because if you don't feel them, you can't get to the other side. You have to work through them. So positive psychology is not claiming you can be happy every day or that life is perfect. What we're just saying is that we can give you some tips and tools to cultivate more happiness and mindfulness in your life. So the first thing I have my clients do, and what I've done myself, is just to remember this. One, happiness is an individual thing. So we can't just give a generic term for happiness because it's different for everybody. So I have my clients really sit down and write a list of 5 to 10 things that bring them happiness. Mm-hmm. Now, it sounds like such an easy question, right? Like, what makes you happy? But the truth is, it is one of the hardest questions I've seen my clients try to answer, because what happens to a lot of us, especially women, is, once we get into a life where we have kids and a family and a marriage and a house and a mortgage and all of that, our happiness kind of shifts, and we really start putting ourselves on the bottom of the priority list, and we really depend on our happiness from everybody else because we're so worried about everybody else. Right. So when I ask women to write down, what makes them happy, a lot of times they really can't think about it. They struggle, but they can tell me what makes each one of their kids happy, what makes their spouse happy, what makes their boss happy, their parents, their best friend, but they just haven't really worked on themselves in so long. So when you really write this list of what makes you happy, I want you to think about being a little bit of selfishness. And I don't want you to think of selfish as a bad term, because it's not. We're talking about being selfish as in self-care, because happiness and self-care work hand in hand. And if you don't have the self-care and you don't do things that cultivate happiness in your life, you don't have it to give. So you want to think of it this way. You can't give what you don't have. Mm-hmm. So it's important for you to write that list. And then the next thing after they write that list, I ask them to look at their lives and see if it matches. And that's the next problem that I've seen with clients. Like, I had a lady who came to me last year in November, and I had her write a list of what makes her happy. And it took her 2 weeks to do this list, and she could only get 4 things. But the first thing on her list was a hot bath. She's like, I love taking a bath. I have one of those deep hot tubs. I have magazines. I have candles. I have a pillow. Mm-hmm. I have bath salts, the whole thing. I mean, she was so excited about it. And especially here on the East Coast, it gets really cold in the winter. So it's really like a spa experience. And then after she explained it to me, I said, that sounds great. When was the last time you took a bath? And she said, maybe one time this year.
Wow.
And that's what we hear from a lot of women. They either can't figure out what makes them happy, they struggle with that, and then when they do, they realize that their lives don't match the list. And a lot of times, right there, you can see the contradiction in your life. If, you have 5 things that make you happy, but yet you don't, schedule them into your lives the way you would a dentist appointment, a business meeting, a lunch date for work, then it's not going to work. So a good place to start is just really thinking about what brings me happiness. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How would I define it? Write that list and then look at your life and say, does it match? And if it does, great. If it doesn't, then you want to start scheduling in at least one happiness or self-care activity a week into your calendar the way you would a dentist or a doctor's appointment. So that's the first place to start. And that gets people thinking too. Wow, all these things do make me happy, but I don't do them. Or you start thinking, I don't even remember what makes me happy. I'm so busy worrying about everybody else, I forgot about myself. And that right there could be an awareness tool to wake up and start putting yourself on the priority list. So that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. When I'm sitting up here listening to you, I'm thinking, I've been there. I've been through that stage in life. And then I always, even to this day, find myself constantly kind of just reanalyzing, where I am with my happiness tool, so to speak. Is it up, down? Am I really doing the things that I say that I would do? Because you're right. We are natural nurturers. So as women, we're always putting everybody else first. And it gets to the point where if you don't learn to take care of you, you can't be there for everybody else. And then you look up, like you said, we'll find ourselves, another year goes by, another day goes by, and we can't remember the last time we had that fun that we are so used to having or enjoyed at one point. So I think that just listening to what you're saying, I really like the process that you are starting people with, because it is important to think about what does really make you happy. And I was never thinking, how many things have I, missed out on? You had me thinking about that. So I think it's awesome. And another thing I was sitting here thinking about was how you were so inspired by your own tragedy to teach others how to make things work. Because I couldn't even imagine sitting here thinking about what you've been through with this disease that you have that is not curable. So to take these lessons that you're learning and implementing them, into other people, I think is amazing. It really is.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot, because I always want to make sure I'm getting out there and doing the right thing, giving people the right information, so I appreciate when I hear from other women that, it connects to them, because that's the important part about it. It's, you want to be relatable, and you want to make sure that people can connect and use the information. And that's why I try to make it as sustainable as possible, because, women, when we own a business and then have a family and then try to have a life on top of that, it's really tough.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But, I think it's great that to me, I don't want to sound sarcastic, but you sound human. You know what I mean? Being right. That you're in the business that you're in, sometimes it's very difficult for people to actually open up, even though they know they need to open up, because some people feel they're being skewed and looked at in a different format because they need that, a little bit of help to get over that edge, or get bumped up and move into the desire of the things that they really want to do in life. So it's really great to be able to talk to someone who's in your field of business and your background as a therapist and so forth. And of course, as an educator, it's not about perfection. It really is truly about you providing ample information that is needed for anybody. It's not whether it's just about being a woman, but just really truly understanding what it means to have a positive thought process. So on that note, talk to me a little bit about some of the books that you have out.
Sure. So my latest book just came out the first week of December. I was very excited. It's called Mindfully Happy, Waking Up to Life. And it's a workbook style, because what I actually did is I wanted to make it as simple as possible. One of the things that I always hated is when I read self-help books and they give me all this information of, why this problem exists, where it came from, even a theory and some history behind it. And then it tells you where you should be, but it doesn't give you the details of how to get there. It leaves that out. It might even really motivate you and make you excited, but then a few days later you go, well, I don't know what to do. So I actually tried to do the complete opposite. This book is about 100 pages, and it's literally gives you the step-by-step. I actually go through the happiness habits, which actually give you the tools to cultivate more happiness in your life. And I give you even ways to actually use them. And again, all of them are free. All of them don't change your schedule, and you can keep them, forever. They're sustainable. So I try to do it that way. So half the book is on happiness and how to cultivate it. And then there's a chapter in the middle about the mix of happiness and mindfulness and why they work well together. And then the rest of the book is on how to cultivate more mindfulness. And mindfulness, I just want to reiterate for people, is not meditation. Meditation is the intentional practice of mindfulness, but you can live a mindful life, which is to be aware, to be awake to your life around you, to be in your consciousness, to be in the present moment, the here and now, which is where we're our most productive, creative, and happiest. So I really want people to remember, people always think of mindfulness and think, oh my God, I have to meditate or I have to do yoga. And those are great things to do, but you don't need to. We can live a mindful lifestyle without adding in meditation or yoga, even though I recommend them highly. But if you don't have the time or it's just not for you, I want people to know there's other ways to get the benefits of mindfulness and meditation without, sitting down and going, Indian style or doing yoga. Because, I hear, I have a lot of clients say, oh, I don't want to meditate. I'm not into it. Or people say, I don't like yoga. And that's fine. There's so many ways to be mindful. And whether you meditate or you're just being mindful, you get the same benefits, and, just some of those benefits are it reduces stress levels. It brings you into the here and now. It lowers your blood pressure. It reduces chronic pain. It helps us sleep. I mean, that's just to name a few. So, and it's all natural without any side effects. So we can't beat that. So the combination of both together gives us a sense of happiness and peace. And the mix of both really create a good foundation to handle anything that comes your way.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. I definitely need to get a copy of that. And then you also had another book, correct?
Yes, so that's my third book. My first book was called Baby Steps, The Path from Motherhood to Career, and that's when I first started, and that was for moms re-entering the workplace and how to make that decision, and if you do go back to work, how to get a job that suits you and mommy guilt. And then the second book was called Creating Balance and Finding Happiness. And that was all about creating a sense of balance in your life and a little bit about happiness. And then I went full force in my latest book with the happiness and mindfulness. Okay. So they're all self-help types of books, but just a little different. The first one's definitely a different topic, but great for all moms who are really trying to make that decision of, should I go back to work? What do I want to do? Is this the best decision for me? And if I do go back to work, what is it going to look like and what am I going to feel like? So
Right. Yeah, because that seems like, it's a shame that we feel like we have to have that choice. I know, of whether we need to work or whether we should be a mom. Why can't we just do both? And even though, society is still trying to allow us and give us more balancing, with our personal lives and our home lives and still have your business or your work life, there are still many issues out there that people don't understand how important it is to have your family first. It is. And not make us women feel guilty about wanting to have the family first.
It's hard. When I did the research for that book, what I've learned is the people who give us the most guilt are other women. I hate to say it.
Wow.
But when I actually went out for the research, when I interviewed business owners or supervisors and managers who were men, they were more relatable to it. They were actually more prone to understand. When I interviewed the women, they were much tougher and harder on women because they felt that if they were the breadwinner and they had to make sacrifices, so should everybody else. This is going back about 10 years, so I'm sure some of it has shifted, but it's still crazy that sometimes women, don't protect each other, and we still see that today. And again, this is not every woman. The company you run, having a small business initiative, things like that, that brings us all together and forms a community, which is so important. But it's really hard, for people because of the guilt, because of society. I was one of those women. I knew I was going right back to work. I just wasn't sure what it was going to look like, but I knew that I didn't go get my master's degree to stay home and that I would be a better mom by working. I knew I couldn't stay home. I just wasn't sure what it would look like. Would I work full-time, part-time? Would I work from home? Would I just put at that point I was teaching college full-time, but I put all my classes just in a few days. I wasn't sure how to handle it, and that's why I started writing the book. But for me, I knew I wanted both, and I'm glad I did. But, you have to find what's best for you, and that's always the most important thing. What's going to make you the best person, the happiest, and the best mom? And when you can start from that question, then you can make decisions based on your best interest, using your strengths, and that will make you the best parent you can be.
Absolutely. I agree with that, because there is no one thing that fits everybody. And I think that's been part of the problem throughout the years. And as you said, it is definitely getting better. But it's interesting how, women can be so catty and, towards each other. And now that you have kind of brought that up, I was thinking, where even when it comes to just going to my regular doctor just to get my checkups, I found that I'm never happy dealing with women. It seems like that the men seem to be a little more understanding or will allow you to explain what it is that you're trying to deal with within yourself, whether it's some physical issue or whatever the case may be. And sometimes women are not as understanding or just, handle it, or really you don't have a problem. Well, I'm here because I do have a problem. So like, wait a minute now. So yeah, so I'm kind of listening and thinking back. Yeah, that is true. Sometimes women still don't get it. It's not about how powerful you are as an individual. It's about understanding that we as women, we can still do everything, but we are not all the same. And that's been the fight that people have had for years, so whether you're, whether it's a woman telling you that or whether it's a male telling you that. But let's move on just a little bit more because we're running out of time. And boy, this time is going by so quickly here. I want to talk about your reality-based internet show that you were on called ourprisoners.com. What is that about? I got to hear this story.
You know what? It was the first internet reality show. And this is when reality shows were going back again, probably about 8-9 years ago, when reality shows were just starting to get big. And it was kind of a Big Brother type of show. So it was a man who was living in a house for 6 months by himself, and everything was controlled for him, like what he could eat, what he could do, who he could see. And he signed away his rights to be to have therapy on the show so everybody could see and hear his problems. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time I've ever done something like that. I mean, I've been a therapist for years before it, but I've never done it live. And it was tough because, he would tell a lot of his problems live, and then, his family would call in and they would hear, because a lot of it was from family issues. And so it was really tough to see him suffer with that because, it's usually a confidential situation. So you're not worried about that. You go to a therapist, and that's part of the reason you do. Or a coach. It's confidential. Everything's private. You can trust. But now you're airing your dirty laundry for everybody. And I mean everybody, because this is the internet. Anybody in the whole world can listen and watch and find it still. Mm-hmm. And it was tough. But he had to stay there 6 months and go by the rules. And he won $1 million when he was done because he did it. Wow. But he went through a lot. So, but it was definitely an experience. I'll tell you that.
I bet it was, because I'm sure he earned every bit of that $1 million, and then have to listen to everybody else's opinion on top of that, right?
Oh, absolutely. He definitely did. Definitely.
Wow, that is amazing. That's interesting. So I'm surprised that show hasn't stayed on, but there's plenty other ones out here very similar to that, as you were saying. So that's interesting. But you have been on quite a few other things. You've been on the Vieira Network. You've been on CBS TV and Fox and Friends. So you told me earlier that you were not my superstar. I'm going to put you in the superstar category. I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to put you there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. But from one superstar to another, I feel the same way about you. So,
well, thank you.
We're all superstars here.
That's right. That's right. Well, but before we go, can you tell the listeners how they can get your books first, and then how they can get a hold of you?
Sure. So you can go to my website, which is just DL Counseling. And on there, you can have all different resources. I have some interviews on there. I have articles on there. I have my workshop schedule for anybody who's in the New York City tri-state area, whether it's Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island, the city. And my books can be found on there, or you could buy my books also at Amazon.com. And then my newest book, Mindfully Happy, is published by Santia Publishing, which you can go right to their website at santiapublishing.com and order the book, either, a ebook or a hard copy from there as well.
All right, great. But before we go, do you have any last words for our listeners?
I just want everybody to remember, wherever you are at this moment in your life, you can always be happier. So if you're feeling a little low or feeling a little blah and wishing that you could be happier, we all have that power within us. So don't give up. Just get the help you need, whether it's a coach, a therapist, or just do it on your own. But we all have that ability to be happier and healthier. So I just think it's great that everybody knows that. And when you feel emotionally happier and healthier, everything kind of balances itself out. So there's all that information out there. Go and grab it and start working at it, and you will definitely notice a difference in a few months.
All right. Well, this has been an awesome interview. We could probably talk another good 30, 40 minutes. But look, we don't want to steal all the thunder and give away all the goodies. So, for those who are interested, like you said, if you're in the New York area, please, reach out to Ms. Lang. I mean, I think there's a lot of great information, that you can still give us. Just like I said, we just don't have enough time for all that. But I do appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to share your story with us here on with all the listeners here on iHeartRadio as well, and all the other avenues that we have out there for listening to the show. So again, like I said, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. And for everybody else, please enjoy your evening. Remember, like I said, we are on iHeartRadio. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.